Have you ever noticed how some stories never really disappear? Years can pass, lives can change, families can be built, and yet one old chapter keeps finding its way back into the headlines. That's exactly what happened when a fresh wave of speculation surrounding Prince Harry's past began spreading online. But why were people suddenly revisiting a relationship that ended well over a decade ago? And what was fueling claims that an emotional confession had finally been made? The answer isn't as simple as the headlines suggest. Because once you look beyond the dramatic captions, a much more fascinating story begins to emerge. For years, one name has followed Harry almost like a shadow: Chelsy Davy. Long before royal weddings, Netflix documentaries, and global media battles, there was a young prince trying to balance love with an extraordinary life. Their relationship stretched from the early 2000s through years of constant public attention, surviving breakups, reconciliations, and relentless press coverage. At first glance, it seemed like the kind of youthful romance that simply ran its course. Except people never stopped asking one question: what if she had been the one who got away? That question has lingered for years, because of something that never quite fit the usual royal narrative. Unlike many relationships involving members of the royal family, Harry and Chelsy appeared remarkably comfortable together before the pressure became overwhelming. Friends and royal commentators have often described their connection as genuine, playful, and built long before Harry's life became even more scrutinized. Still, being close to a prince came with a price. The photographers, the headlines, the endless speculation. And according to interviews Chelsy has given over the years, the intense media attention became incredibly difficult to live with. She has spoken publicly about how frightening and exhausting that spotlight could be, making it clear that the royal lifestyle simply wasn't something she wanted for herself. That detail changes everything. Because suddenly the breakup doesn't look like a lack of affection. It starts looking like a collision between love and circumstance. As the years passed, both moved forward. Harry eventually married Meghan Markle and stepped away from senior royal duties. Chelsy built her own career and private life, deliberately staying away from constant publicity. Yet the comparisons never stopped. Every anniversary, every documentary, every memoir, someone inevitably brought her name back into the conversation. Then recently, social media exploded with dramatic claims that Harry had supposedly confessed Chelsy was the love of his life and admitted, "I still love her." The stories spread quickly. Thousands shared them. Videos appeared almost overnight. But here's the important part. There is no verified public interview, speech, memoir excerpt, or credible report in which Prince Harry has made those statements. That's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Sometimes what captures public attention isn't an actual confession. It's the gap between what people imagine and what has actually been documented. And that gap has become surprisingly large. Harry has spoken openly in the past about how deeply the press affected his personal relationships. In interviews and in his memoir, he has reflected on the emotional strain created by constant media intrusion and the difficulty of maintaining normal relationships while living under extraordinary scrutiny. Many royal observers believe those experiences shaped nearly every romantic decision he made. Notice what that means. It's possible to acknowledge that someone played an important role in your life without claiming they remained your greatest love forever. Those are two very different ideas. Yet online, they often become blurred into one irresistible headline. Halfway through the story, another layer appears. Chelsy attended Harry and Meghan's wedding in 2018. That single fact has fueled years of speculation. Some interpreted it as evidence of lasting affection. Others viewed it simply as two people who had remained on respectful terms after sharing an important chapter of their lives. Neither interpretation proves anything beyond what is publicly known. And that's exactly why the mystery continues. Human beings are naturally drawn to unfinished stories. Especially when those stories involve royalty. Especially when the people involved rarely speak about them. Every rare photograph, every old interview, every resurfaced memory. They become pieces of a puzzle people desperately want to complete. But puzzles are dangerous when pieces are missing. The internet often fills those missing pieces with imagination. That's why sensational headlines spread far faster than careful reporting. The emotional version is simply more compelling. Yet the documented story may actually be more interesting. It tells us about a young man trying to balance duty with happiness. A young woman deciding that personal freedom mattered more than royal status. And two lives that ultimately traveled in different directions. Even years later, those decisions continue to fascinate millions because they represent something deeply human. The choice between love and lifestyle. Between privacy and privilege. Between emotion and responsibility. As for the viral claims that Harry finally admitted Chelsy was the love of his life, or declared that he still loved her, those statements remain unsupported by credible public evidence. That doesn't stop the speculation. In fact, the absence of confirmation may be exactly what keeps the conversation alive. People continue searching for hidden meanings inside old interviews. They revisit photographs. They analyze body language. They compare timelines, sometimes searching for answers that may never exist. Perhaps that's the real reason this story refuses to disappear. Not because of one dramatic confession, but because everyone wants to believe there's a secret ending waiting to be discovered. And maybe the most remarkable part isn't whether Harry ever looked back. It's why the world still does.